Welcome, everyone, to the regularly scheduled and actually being held today Short-Term Rental Appeals Board meeting. Oh, and here is Mr. Loico making an entrance. Perfect. Okay, the timing couldn't be better. Mr. McBroom, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. The Metropolitan Short-Term Rental Board of Appeals is now in session for the regularly scheduled meeting of February 25th, 2026. I am Short-Term Rental Property Chief Bonnie L. McBroom III, and I will be presenting the cases to the board for review in today's public hearing. At this time, I would ask everyone to either turn off their cell phones or put them on silent as not to disrupt today's meeting. The procedure will be for staff to introduce the case record. At the conclusion of our presentation, the appellant will present their case to the board along with any person in support. If there is opposition to a case, the board will then hear from those parties. After the opposition has presented their testimony, the appellant will have a period for rebuttal. The board and their rules provide for cases without opposition, 5 minutes total for the appellant, including members of the public speaking in support of the appeal, to present their case and supporting comments. For cases that have opposition, the rules provide the appellant, including members of the public speaking in support of the appeal, 10 minutes total for their presentation and rebuttal of the opposition's presentation. The appellant must reserve a portion of the allotted 10 minutes for their rebuttal. For members of the public speaking in opposition, 10 minutes is provided, and this is 10 minutes total for all speakers combined, not 10 minutes for each speaker. For members of the public that want to submit comments to be entered into the record prior to the meeting that are either in support of or opposition to an appeal, the comments must be submitted to the board staff no later than 5 days prior to the public hearing. You can send comments to strboard@nashville.gov. Documentation supporters or opponents wish to provide to the board after the deadline can be presented to the board members by providing 8 copies at the public hearing. However, the board may elect to defer cases in order to review any materials received after the deadline. The Metro Code requires that these proceedings be taped. Therefore, it is imperative that anyone addressing the board come forward, speak into the microphone, identify yourself, and then make your presentation. It should be noted that if it is found that anyone has presented false, misleading testimony to the board that would have affected the board's decision, any approval may be revoked at a later date by means of a show cause hearing. The board will go through the cases set for public hearing today. After both sides of the case presentations are made, the board will discuss and vote on the case. The board is vested with the power to act on these cases before us today under the provisions as outlined in section 6.28.035 of the Metropolitan Code. The code requires 4 members of the 7-member board to be present to constitute a quorum. The board rules require a majority vote in the affirmative of the members present to grant the appellant's application. In the event that the majority vote is not achieved, the case will remain on the board's agenda for the next regularly scheduled public hearing. Applications that fail to receive a majority affirmative vote at the next regularly scheduled public hearing shall be deemed denied by operation of law. Any aggrieved party may, within 60 days of the entry of an order stating a decision of the board resulting from an appeal hearing, appeal a finding to the board under the common law writ of certiorari in accordance with TCA 27-9-101 and following to the Chancery Court within the same 60-day period. After that time has elapsed, the board's decision becomes final and no further action can be taken. If you are an appellant and your case is granted, it will be necessary for you to obtain the permit for which you have applied. It should be noted the permit must be obtained within 2 years for the board approval to remain valid. I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order. All appellants have been notified as required by the code. All affected property owners have been notified, and legal notification sign requirements have been met as required by the code. Chairman Caputo, before we move on, this time we would like to see if there are any elected officials present that wish to speak. Seeing none, and absent any other announcements, we're ready for the first case to be heard.
Can I just confirm with you what you mentioned about all mics being live? So that means we don't have to do the delegate, me giving permission to.
That's correct. Everyone controls their microphones individually.
Great. I think it's because I failed so abominably in the past. Okay, terrific. Let's get the first case going.
First case is 2025-031. Is the appellant present? Is there any opposition present? Is there opposition present for any of the cases on the agenda today? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed with the first case. 2025-031, 843 Lischey Avenue, Jesse and Heather Fought. Permit canceled due to the change of ownership. This is a CN commercial neighborhood, and owner-occupied and not owner-occupied permits are available here. This is governed by BL 2024-478. And pursuant to section 6.28.030, point B, point 5, point L, point 6.2, upon the determination of the zoning administrator or the zoning administrator's designee that a short-term rental property is operated without having obtained a permit, there shall be a waiting period of 1 year from the date of such determination by the zoning administrator or designee for the property to become eligible for an STRP permit. The board has discretion under BL 2023-136. On February 24th of 2022, a multifamily, not owner-occupied STRP permit was issued to the former owner, 843 Lischey Avenue, LLC. The applicant for the permit was Robert DePaoli. On May 22nd, 2025, a representative from Avant Stay emailed the STRP office requesting to update the property manager's information on STRP permit number 2022008803 from Epic B&B, the then current owner's property manager, to Avant Stay, the prospective new owner's property manager. Apparently somewhere in the process outside of Metro codes, the prospective owners, the appellants, had received the impression that the existing STRP permit would transfer to them when the purchase was finalized. Pursuant to section 6.28.030.B.5.K, an STRP permit shall not be transferred or assigned to another individual, person, entity, or address, nor shall the permit authorize any person other than the person named therein to operate an STRP on the property. If the zoning administrator determined that there's been a change in ownership, the permit will no longer be valid. The new owner must apply for a permit under the regulations in effect at the time the application is received. On June the 24th, On June 24th of 2025, the appellants Jesse and Heather Fought acquired the property at 843 Lischey Avenue, Nashville, Tennessee 37207 from the previous owner, 843 Lischey Avenue LLC, which was formerly 841 Lischey Avenue 7 LLC, which quitclaim deeded the property from Robert DePaoli on 1/19/2022. The address for this property appeared on September 16th of 2025. The address for this property appeared on the monthly list for September provided by Gronica's Host Compliance. The properties operating without an STRP permit. Inspector John Phelps verified the website advertisement was posted and the property was operating without an STRP permit, as the previous owner's permit was canceled when the ownership change occurred on June 25th, 2025, pursuant to the previously cited STRP ordinance section. At this time, there were 3 documented stays after the permit was canceled, one in July, one in August, and one in September. Inspector Phelps sent a notice of violation to the appellants, giving them 30 days to comply. On October the 10th, Inspector Phelps reviewed the advertisements and found them still active. There was also an additional documented stay in October. Inspector Phelps made a site visit to the property, posted a stop work order, and documented that with photos. On October 16th of 2025, Inspector Phelps received an email from the representative of the property management team inquiring about the stop work order posted on the 10th. He reviewed the advertisements and found that the property could not be booked or rented for less than 30 nights. The case was closed. He forwarded the email to Inspector David Frevitt to follow up in the event that there was an appeal to be filed. Inspector Frevitt explained that the ownership change had canceled the permit, the previous owner's permit. Thus, the new owners had been operating without a permit in violation of the ordinance, which carries a 1-year wait period before application could be made for a new permit. On October 23rd of 2025, the appeal was filed. On December 4th of 2025, as of this writing, there has been one additional documented stay in October. There were no complaints on the Nashville hub and no complaints on the STRP hotline.
Great. Anyone have any questions for staff before we hear from the appellant?
Okay, I just have one question, I think. So I'm just trying to make sure that I understand the timeline and the communication that happened with staff. It looks like, and just correct me if I'm wrong, AvantStay emailed the STRP office in May, and code said the contact information has been updated. That was before the Faughts acquired the property, right?
Yes, I believe the acquisition date was
Was in June.
June 25th.
Okay,
June 24th, yep.
got it. That was my only question. I wanted to make sure that that was clear. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay, great. Are you gentlemen both going to be speaking? Yes. Okay, terrific. So you have 5 minutes between the two of you. Don't feel like you need to use all of it. And if you could just tell us about your situation, but before you begin speaking, give us your name and your address for the record. I'm a little rusty. Have I forgotten anything? Oh, yeah, and you have to turn on the mic. The one that has a little person with a, there you go. Same goes for you. Okay, thank you.
All right, good afternoon. I am Zane Bishop, a member of the policy team for AvantStay. AvantStay has a corporate mailing address of 9901 Brody Lane, Austin, Texas, suite 1606012, zip code 78748. Our local address is 1310 Haysboro Avenue, Nashville 37216. We are the property managers for 843 Lischey. We are today representing the owners, Jesse and Heather Fott, who were unable to make this particular meeting. AvantStay is a good faith operator of over 200 hotel and short-term rental units in Nashville and almost 3,000 nationwide. We have operated locally for nearly 6 years. Try to quickly go through the details of this case. Essentially, the update to list AvantStay as the manager on the permit for 843 Lischey Avenue was submitted to Metro by a former employee of AvantStay before Mr. and Mrs. Fott closed on the home. This led to us internally kind of checking off the permitting tasks and requirements for this new home for us in air. And as we found out, the permit that was updated was under the previous owner's name, and a new permit had not been issued to Mr. or Mrs. Fott. There was an email chain from June 2nd in which Mr. Fott acknowledged to Metro that AvantStay was the manager and local contact for his home. And this update was accepted by Metro. But again, the update was actually to the existing or the old permit under the previous owner's name. The stop work order was initially sent to the previous owner and posted on the front door of the unit, but our guests and vendors would have used the garage for entry, so we were not made aware of the order until October 16th. There was a guest in the home that day, and we ended up having them check out the next day. Upon being notified by Metro of the error, we promptly relocated future guests. We moved the listings for the property to only allow long-term 31 or more day stays. And we applied, paid for, and obtained the landlord registration for the home, which was required for those longer-term stays. I would also note that when we were recently working to update us as the local contact for another permit held by another owner that we managed for, this is from an email from January 6th of this year, from Nick Owen from Metro. He said, quote, "Due to some recent errors on our end, moving forward in 2026, we must have an email directly from the owner to update contact information." All that being said, given AvantStay and Mr. and Mrs. Fott's prompt response to this matter, and given our track record of being good faith operators in Nashville, we are requesting relief from the mandatory, I think 1 year waiting period. We were initially told by Metro that was, I think a 6-month waiting period, but then it was confirmed to be 1 year. Requesting relief from that 1 year waiting period to apply for a new short-term rental permit under Mr. and Mrs. Fott's names and under our management. Also, if it makes your decision any easier today, Metro Council would still need to approve a resolution allowing an exemption for operating a new, or obtaining a new permit nearby a church. However, any relief on this particular matter, given your understanding of the situation and our track record, would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Any questions for Zane before we move on to your colleague? And I'm sorry, can we just check how much time is left for these? Okay.
Was that the end of the presentation?
Yeah.
What, this, you're all set?
My name is Kenny McCullum, just for the record. I'm here just to help. I can second what he said. I work for Avante. I'm the local area manager here and just here to answer any questions that you guys have.
Okay, super, thank you. And could I trouble you for your address as well, since you've,
Sure. I live at 3614B Doge Place in Nashville, Tennessee, 37204.
great. Nicole, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah,
This is just a clarifying question. Did you say that the owners applied for a short-term rental permit before closing?
The current owners had not applied for a short-term rental permit.
Okay. I think I misunderstood that in your presentation, that's all.
and can I just confirm, you mentioned in your talk just now that you manage 200 units, and is that all here in Nashville?
There's, a little over 200 units in Nashville, and then we have several thousand nationwide in other markets.
Okay, and so what happened was someone who no longer works for you guys updated the contact for the management of it, but failed to take it a step further and say there's going to be new owners, and therefore, that kind of fell through the cracks.
Yeah, so,
There's misconception on
Yeah,
your
so under
part.
the previous, process to update the contacts, Avante emailed Metro, included the owner, said that Avante is the new local contact for this permit. The current owner, Mr. Fott, confirmed that Avante was the manager. That was all accepted by Metro. What we didn't realize was that and hadn't checked, was that the permit that was being updated was not under the current owner's name. Or,
Right.
no, sorry, under the buyer's name.
Right, because a permit can't be updated.
Yes.
As you know and should know as the
Yes.
senior policy associate, right?
Yes.
Okay. So had you been running the show instead of your employee, this wouldn't have happened?
And ideally, yes. Yeah, we've updated a lot of, since this happened, we've updated a lot of permits, and I've double checked to make sure that the ownership aligns and that they've already closed and it's the current, the current owner, current permit, all of that.
Okay. I will say, we haven't seen Avant stay here before, so this hasn't fallen through too many cracks. Nicole?
Yeah, so when you found out about the stop work order, you had someone staying there at the time, but you asked them to check out early?
I believe so, yeah, they checked out the
Okay.
next day.
And then you immediately changed the listing or contacted codes to say, hey, what do we need to do to be in compliance? Changed the listing, took remedial action.
Yeah,
cetera, et cetera.
I think it took a minute to unpack that, it was, why, because
Right.
we thought we had a permit of the current owner, it was the old owner, but yeah, we took immediate action, updated all the listings. There were no more, stays since October 17th.
Okay,
Yeah, since we, we were notified, or we found out on the 16th, previous owner was contacted. I don't think, even though we had been updated as the local contact, I don't think we ever got an email. I think we got a photo of the stop work order.
was what it looked like to
Yeah.
me as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So is it Avante's customary business practice to, to actually apply for the permit on behalf of the owner, or to have the owner simply verify that the permit has been obtained before you begin management services?
Either way, yeah, if typically, if the owner doesn't have a permit, we would typically apply, and we would, make sure everything's approved before going live and hosting any guests. In this case, there was just a misunderstanding that the permit that we were told the owner was coming in with was actually the previous owners.
So did the misunderstanding come about because the question was never asked before you all assumed management responsibility for the property?
That is not something I'm sure of, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, we are going to close the public hearing and discuss this amongst ourselves, and you will hear our decision.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really comfortable with the response from the appellant. I feel like this seems like, oh, could you turn yours off just sorry, just because we're getting feedback, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Terrence. No, I think that they took remedial action. As soon as they found out that there was an issue, they worked to address the issue. Also, I would note, we have missed a couple of meetings because of quorum and weather. So I'm comfortable at this point, given all of the actions that were taken. There obviously was no intent to circumvent the system. I would be comfortable with letting them reapply for a permit effective, Monday or whatever.
That's a really good point. So they filed the appeal October 23rd, so we ought to have, would they have been able to make the November meeting? No, they would have had the December meeting.
Right, but we
And
didn't
then we
meet
didn't
in
meet in
December,
'cause
we
of
didn't
yeah.
meet in January.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. that
And
there's been a
I'm just
delay.
gonna point out, that's gonna be a common refrain
Sure.
from me today for
No doubt.
people who filed in October, November, so.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a very good point. Yeah, if you look at the kind of the list of the criteria that Metro Council gave us, there was no intent, remedial action was taken, there was no effort to be, to be bad actors.
This is the first instance I've ever heard of asking a guest to leave before
Yeah.
their stay was completed, so I think
Yeah.
that's pretty significant.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it seems like it was a reasonable mistake, and I think they took every action that I think they're showing that they're doing exactly what we want them to do. So I'm also inclined to provide relief.
Who would like to make a motion? Nicole, you're very good at it.
Sure. I will move that we find that the zoning administrator did not err. However, given the circumstances discussed, and the appellant's immediate remedial action, that we would grant relief and allow the appellant to apply for a permit effective Monday.
I'll
Second.
second.
We're competing for seconding. Can I see a show of hands? It is unanimous. Very good. Thanks for coming in today, guys, and have a great day. Okay. Terrific.
Our next case is 2025034. Is there opposition present? This is an expired permit, and the property operated as a short-term rental property with an expired permit. This is an SP, a specific plan. However, non-owner occupied and owner occupied permits are allowed. This is governed by BL 2020-187.
I'm so sorry. I just want to be clear
Yeah.
that we're all on the same page. I think we got a case record for 032, but it's not actually on the agenda, so is that correct?
Yes, that was withdrawn. It should have been
Okay.
on your docket.
Got it.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to make
Yep,
sure
yep,
we're all on the
yep.
same. Sorry for
Absolutely.
That's
interrupting.
fine.
We're easily confused. Okay, sorry.
Governed by BL 2020-187, pursuant to section 6.28.030.B.5.L.6.2, upon determination of the zoning administrator's designee that a short-term rental property is operated without having renewed a previously issued permit, there will be a waiting period of 6 months from the date of such determination by the zoning administrator or designee for the property to become eligible for an STRP permit. The board has discretion under BL 2023-136. On October the 10th, Seth Kleiner acquired the property at 2129 Goodrich Avenue, Nashville, Tennessee, 37218. On October the 11th, Seth Kleiner quitclaim deeded the property to 2129 Goodrich Avenue, LLC. On October the 28th of 2024, a not owner occupied STRP permit application was submitted for the property and it was processed and issued. October 28th of 2025, the permit expired. October 28th of 2025, Administrative Officer Alicia Buffer sent the following reminder email to the contact owner and billing contact listed on the permit at their respective email addresses on file. It reads, on October 29th, 2025, hello, to proceed with renewing your permit, please answer the enclosed questions. Are you receiving the 45 and 60-day renewal notification through your email? If yes, which folder? If you're not receiving notification at all through any folders, please apply along with the responding below. Your STRP for 2129 Goodrich expired on 10/28/25, and I'm inquiring to see if you're planning on renewing this permit. So that email was sent to the owner, Seth Kleiner, also to the corporate office of info@ashwoodholdings.com, which we later learned was no longer their property manager, and also to 2129 Goodrich, avail at gmail.com. On November the 3rd at 3:51 p.m., our office received an email through the STRP questions at nashville.gov mailbox from Jake Gomes with the email address of info.gomeshomes@nashville.com. The subject line, permit renewal for 2129 Goodrich Avenue, stating, hey there, I'm the new property manager for this property. Could you please send me the renewal link so that I can get that squared away? On November 4th at 8:20 a.m., Inspector Nick Owens responded, we will need an email from the property owner giving you permission to operate the STR, and we'll need the following contact information for you, name, address, phone, and email. This information was required due to the following code section of the STRP ordinance. Pursuant to 6.28.030B3B, the STRP permit application shall verify by affidavit that all of the information being provided is true and accurate, and the application shall include the following information: the name, telephone number, address, email address of the owner and person or business responsible party residing or located within 25 miles of the STRP that is responsible for addressing all maintenance and safety concerns. And 6.28.030B5H, the name and telephone number of the local responsible party shall be conspicuously posted within the STRP unit. The responsible party shall answer calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the duration of each short-term rental period to address problems associated with the STRP. Mr. Gomes responded with the requested information. However, it is important to note that Inspector Owens sent the renewal code on this date on November 4th, 2025, to the new property manager as verified by Metro ITS on the following documentation. And I will not read all of the documentation, but ITS did confirm that the information was sent at that time. Our office did not receive the necessary confirmation from the owner regarding the change of the property management. Even though Inspector Owens sent the renewal code to the new property management, the permit was not renewed. On December 2nd of 2025, Administrative Officer Alicia Buffer sent the final reminder email to the listed contact owner and billing contact listed on the permit at their respective email addresses on file. And it reads, hello, your STRP for 2131 Goodrich Avenue expired and is now beyond the 30-day grace period and cannot be renewed. Please contact David Frabit at davidfrabit@nashville.gov regarding your permit. I would point out that The subject line was for 2129 Goodrich Avenue. However, the body of the email read 2131. And this again was sent to the corporate office for Ashwood Holdings, Seth Klein at Legal, at Collins Legal, and 2129 Goodrich. Attorney Seth Klein responded, and his email was on Tuesday, December the 2nd. It said, Lischey, based on the below email thread, the expired STRP permit is associated with 2129 Goodrich Avenue, not 2131. Can you please confirm? Apparently, Attorney Klein forwarded this information to the new property manager as Sarah Crowe of Gomes Agency reached out to Inspectors Owen and Frabit. She stated that they had just received the expiration email from Seth Klein, and she asked what needed to be done. Inspector Frabit pointed out that the owner of the property, the permit holder, had been included on all the emails regarding the expiration and the renewal and failed to respond since there had been 4 documented stays after the expiration. The ordinance requires advertising and operating the property as an STRP must cease for a period of 6 months, after which they may submit a new permit application. On December the 3rd, 2025, Administrative Officer Buffer made the correction and resent the email stating that the STRP at 2129 Goodrich Avenue expired on 10/28/25. And on that same date, the appeal was filed.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for staff before we hear from the appellant? Go ahead.
Okay, so what it sounds like to me is that the new property manager emailed codes and said, hey, can you update the information, the contact information for this permit? Code said, we need this information from you and we need confirmation from the property owner. They got the contact information, they didn't get confirmation from the property owner, but they still sent the renewal email to the new property manager anyway, which maybe shouldn't have done, but did. So the new property manager should have received the renewal information, even though they didn't quite have all of the I's dotted and T's crossed yet.
No, the procedure normally is, generally when this situation arises, we hear from the owner very shortly after that contact. And so if the renewal had been sent in at that point, they would have said, we still have not received permission.
Got it. Okay. So it was fine to send the renewal code, regardless, doesn't matter if it was okay, if it wasn't okay. Okay,
Yeah,
they got the renewal code.
It was fine.
Okay, got it.
Because the check on that is if the renewal information and payment are sent in, it's not accepted without that information being confirmed by the owner.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
And just to confirm, that link with renewal was sent on the 4th of November after the correction was made to the email address on the 29th, and that was within the grace period. So if someone had acted quickly and
Yes.
with alacrity,
That's correct.
it would have been managed. Okay.
Even if it was just slightly outside of the grace period by the time it was finalized,
Right.
due to the fact that they had initiated it prior to that.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. So you've got 5 minutes since there's no opposition here to speak. Your mic is already open. I can see from the green light. So just start with your name and your address and tell us about your situation.
Yes, Jake Gomes. My personal address is 1101 Park Lawn Drive, Nashville, Tennessee, 37211. And my company is called Gomes Homes. We are a local property manager. We do short-term and long-term management. So we had taken on this property to manage in the beginning of 2025 in January, operated it throughout the year. What I'm not here to do is try to find some loophole or an error or whatever it may be. It was a mess. It was once the renewal permit went out, it was going to the wrong email from the prior property manager. The 2129 Goodrich Ave LLC at Gmail email isn't used by this owner. That was from the prior owner, so he never checked it. When I brought it to his attention, he goes, well, yeah, I think I got that when I bought it, had to check back on it. Again, that's not an excuse. We should have been on it. The owner should have been on it. I also understand that changing property managers does not excuse you from updating your permit. I will say, you've never seen me here before. You know, we are local, we are small. I've never been here before. I don't plan to ever be here again. You know, and I want to take full ownership here because there was an employee that we had that was responsible. It was our director of operations, whose responsibility is to keep an eye on these things. And she had thought that the permit had been updated because an email had gone out from the city saying this has been updated. But what the reference was updating was the correct property manager on file. Her name is Sarah Crowe. I am not Sarah Crowe. There's a reason why she's not here. I'm the owner of the company. That individual is no longer with us. As the owner of the company, I have taken on full responsibility of making sure that all of the permits that our owners have are completely up to date. We have reminders in our calendar of 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, and then 15 days after to still be within the grace period. You know, we are requesting relief because one of the reasons being is as soon as the email was forwarded from Seth Klein, so Seth Klein and Seth Kreiner, y'all know Seth Klein, Seth Kreiner is the owner. As soon as that was forwarded to us, we instantly took the listing down as a short-term rental, and we had a stay coming in 2 or 3 days. Yeah, 2 days, because someone was supposed to come that Friday. We instantly canceled that booking, instantly canceled the future bookings. No one has stayed in the home as a short-term rental since, to which, you know, we did the appeal, again, as you saw, the very same day to try to rectify this. So we are requesting relief on the basis of this is the first time that we've been in this situation. We've done what we can immediately to rectify it, and we, you know, respect the codes. We respect, you know, we understand that the short-term rental enforcement is due to protect Nashville, and we want to protect Nashville. You know, it was a mistake on our part, the owner's part. The prior property manager, he could have forwarded some emails our way. You know, I don't know why they didn't. We know those guys, but you know, it was a mess, and I take responsibility. But therefore, you know, I'm asking for relief. Yeah.
Great. Anyone have questions for Mr. Gomes?
I don't have a question, but I did want to say that I appreciate you just coming up here and saying it was a mess. And not trying to explain things away. I think that goes a long way when you take responsibility, particularly as the head of the agency coming here, is that makes a statement that you do take this seriously, so I appreciate that.
Can I just clarify with you, Mr. Gomes, when you removed the ad? I'm not sure I have that in my notes here.
It was, I believe it was the very same day. It was
The very same day, like December 2nd, when
like
you...
Wednesday, yeah, once we got the notification, because...
From Mr. Klein?
Correct, because
Okay.
we saw that, at that time, that operations manager was still with me. I got on the phone with her, what's happening, kind of went into crisis mode. I'm pretty sure my bald spot got bigger that day by about an inch, because I always remember that day. But yeah, and then first we brought it to 30-day plus stays, so it wouldn't be within the short term. That's what we did immediately. And then from there, when we just ended up just taking the listing down fully.
Guys, you have any questions?
Oh, I did actually
Oh, yeah,
have a
please, go
question
ahead.
that I thought of. So that info at gomeshomesnashville.com, that renewal email that got sent, would that have gone to Ms. Crowe, who didn't, because it looks like y'all got an email with the renewal link to info@gomeshomesnashville.com on November 4th. But there was no action taken to solidify the renewal. So was that?
It was part of the misunderstanding and the mess, because there was an email that said that the property or manager on file has been updated, or an email that went out that it has been updated. So the understanding, mistakenly of course, was that the permit was now updated. Not
Okay.
with the property manager, but the permit itself was updated.
Right, okay, and you've updated procedures, you said reminders, all of that, like you've gone over with your staff the appropriate steps to take when you come on to a listing.
Yes, since that whole situation, I just fully took on the short-term rental operations as the owner. It was a lesson-friendly reminder, you know, that, hey, we really have to be on top of this and make sure, you know, this is being taken care of well. Since then, I haven't hired anyone new, but I do have someone that I will hire, but regardless, it is in the calendar, again, at 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, 15 into the grace period. So this is not just for this property, you know, of course, because we don't have a new permit yet, but for all of the short-term rentals that we take care of.
Okay, this could be a good case study for your new hire.
Yeah. See this gray? Yeah, this is why we do this.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to discuss this amongst ourselves. You're welcome to stay there or go back to your seat if you choose, but we're going to call the public hearing closed. Okay. I think we have first of all, a lot of people losing their jobs at the short-term management companies. Tough times in Nashville. I mean, I think we have another very similar to our last case. You know, again, somebody dropping the ball and losing their gig. But, 6 months is not, you know, draconian, but I think at this point, we probably could offer some relief off that. But I do think we might want to consider December 2nd as the start date. Only because there was kind of, November 4th could have been a golden moment if everybody pulled their act together.
Right.
And it wasn't. So that's kind of, my preference would be to consider December 2nd as our start date of when we consider any relief, if you guys agree.
I think we're at least giving credit for January.
December 3rd?
Do you want to?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I think as we did last time, we're giving credit for January again because we didn't have a meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, personally, I feel at this point, if we started at December 3rd or December 2nd, I mean, we're almost to March, that's 3 months. That's half the time that they would otherwise have to wait. So I personally would feel comfortable letting them apply on Monday, because that's March, if you can believe it, but.
I don't have an issue with that.
Nor do I. Ramon?
An acquiesce. Actually, honestly, I was gonna say 90 days. For giving credit for December, 90 days would be March 3rd, so, or thereabouts.
We're in violent agreement. Okay, I'll make a motion that we determine that the zoning administrator did not err, and yet we are going to offer half off. So a 3-month delay in renewing the permit, which means the appellant is eligible to apply come Monday.
Second.
Second? Can I see a show of hands? Very good. Thank you so much for coming in today, and we appreciate your time and your candor.
Thank you.
Have a good one. I know. I feel bad for all these people on the bread line now.
Our next case is STR 2025-035. It's 2440 Monticello Drive. Is there any opposition present? Our appellant is present. This is also an expired permit. The property operated as an STRP with an expired permit. This is an R8 zone district where only owner-occupied permits are available. This is governed by BL 2020-187, and the board has discretion under BL 2023-136. December 6th of 2019, Albert Luane and Renee Jones acquired the property at 2440 Monticello Drive, Nashville, Tennessee, 37207. August 18th of 2023, an Airbnb advertisement was posted. On August 23rd, there was one documented stay. In September of 2023, a listing was identified by Granicus Host Compliance, Metro's compliance contractor. On October 23rd, this address appeared on the monthly list for properties operating a short-term rental without a permit. On October 12th of 2023, Inspector John Feltz sent a notice of violation to the owners for operating without a permit. The ads were removed after the notice was received. They waited their year, September the 6th of 2024. An owner-occupied STRP permit application was submitted, processed, and issued. September 6th of 2025, the permit expired. September 8th of 2025, administrative officer sent the reminder email, and it was 10:27 a.m., subject 2440 Monticello Drive. And again, it was to inform them that the permit had expired and was requesting them to renew if they intended to do so. And our office did not receive a response. On October the 7th, Administrative Officer Buffer sent a final reminder email to the listed contact owner and billing contact listed on the permit at their respective email addresses. And again, it reads, hello, your STRP for 2440 Monticello Drive expired on 9/6/2025 and is now beyond the 30-day grace period and cannot be renewed. Please contact David Frabit at davidfrabit@nashville.gov regarding your expired permit. And again, our office didn't receive a response. And December 4th, 2025, the address for the property appeared on the monthly list for December provided by Granicus Host Compliance of properties operating with an expired permit. Inspector Feltz verified the website advertisement was posted and that the property was operating with an expired STRP permit. At this time, there were 5 documented stays after the permit expired, 3 in October, 2 in November. Inspector Feltz sent a notice of violation to the appellant. On December 19th, the appellant emailed Inspector David Frabit. He informed the appellant that since there were stays after the 30-day grace period expiration, the mandatory 6-month wait period would begin after the last documented stay. However, they had the right to appeal the decision to the STR Board of Appeals. And on that same date, the appeal was filed. There were no complaints on the Hub Nashville or the short-term rental property hotline.
Great. Does anyone have questions for staff before we get started? Go ahead, Mike.
I do. Quick question. On October 12th, 2023, said that a notice of violation was sent to the owners for operating without a permit. Was it sent to this same email address that was referenced later in 2025?
No, sir, that notification goes out by mail.
Mail to the address?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And then, do we know if there were any stays after the notice of violation was sent? It didn't,
No, the
Okay.
advertisement was removed and they waited their 1 year.
sorry, I'm not talking about that notice of violation, this one in 2025.
Yeah.
Were there stays after I know there were stays after the permit expired. I wasn't clear if there were stays in December after the notice of violation was sent.
We see 3 in October and 2 in November, but there were none in December?
I don't see any in
Yeah, we don't
December,
see-
but I
that's-
just
that's
want
what
to
we're
be
trying to confirm.
sure.
Just a moment and I can verify that for you.
Thank you.
Are you Ms. Jones? Yeah, please, come on up.
Yes, 3 October to November, and that was the last day.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, terrific. Hi, Ms. Jones. You've heard my spiel before, so the microphone is open.
Yes.
You're going to start by giving us your name and your address, and then tell us about your situation. You have 5 minutes, but don't feel you have to use it all.
Okay. So I am Renee Jones, and the Airbnb is at 2440 Monticello Drive.
I'm I'm sorry, is that your address? Do you live there?
No.
Okay,
I
we
live
need
at-
your address.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I live at 5428 Oak Chase Drive, Antioch, Tennessee,
Okay.
37013. So with the Airbnb, once I found out that it was, in violation, and I called Mr. Probert and talked with him, and he gave me, him and his assistant, Alicia, gave me the, orders that I need to do. Then me and my husband just went ahead and started doing it. I just didn't know had expired. When I found out it had expired, that's when I made the call. So, and probably because it was mailed out to the address of the Airbnb instead of to my home, I think I probably would have found out about it sooner. But because we wasn't responsible enough to be able to, to shuffle the mail, me and my husband, then that's how come it got past me. But typically, I am on top of things. As far as when it comes down to business, I have my own business of myself, so it was just a lot going on last year. And it just got past me. And then I thought that the expiration for the Airbnb would be 2 years and not one. So that's where it first got me. I was shocked because I thought it was 2 years instead of one. So I had first messed that up, so.
Okay. But this happened once before and it was a 1 year. Was it not?
No, it never happened. This is the first time this happened.
October 12th of 2023, notice of violation. Oh, you were operating without, okay, and then you waited the year. My apologies. That's right, okay. So you had never had one, I apologize, ma'am.
No.
You had never had one before, so you thought it was a 2-year permit.
Correct.
But it was a 1. Okay.
Correct.
My apologies. I think I'm conflating some cases in my brain. Okay, so did you, as required by Nashville, did you post the permit anywhere? Because it does have the date on it.
Did I post a permit
Yeah.
anywhere?
Aren't you required by statute, by ordinance rather, to post the permit or have the number on the ad?
It's dependent upon the ordinance in effect at the time the permit is issued, but in this case, it would have been required.
It would not have been required.
Would
have
have
been
been.
required. Okay, while I have you, Mac, the ordinance on this one is 187. That's a 6-month waiting, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, just wanted to confirm. Okay. Okay, so and it is a little confusing because there are different ordinances that have been passed at different times and the rules apply depending on when you applied. So you were required to post the license and the license has that date on it. So just, going forward, take note of that, okay?
Okay.
Anyone else?
Maybe one. I just want to ask about this email address, rstylus12@yahoo. Is that an account you use frequently?
It is. It is.
Thank you.
All right.
Could I ask why you thought it was a 2-year permit? Because the entire time that the ordinance has been in effect, these have been 1-year permits. 1 year is typical for most things that you renew. So why did you think it was 2 years?
I think this was the first time us running an Airbnb.
Okay.
And you basically learning based on experience as you go along, but not keeping up with everything that's being said and all of the paperwork. I think that's what kind of threw me off.
Did you look in your spam folder to see if you had gotten those notifications and they were just like being routed to spam? Because I know that the reminder emails, I think, are like automatically generated, right? And so I know that they sometimes go to the spam folder. I could I'm trying to figure out why you got the email from Alicia saying, hey, it's expired, but you didn't get the emails about the reminders. Sorry, did you check your spam folder by
So,
chance?
I did not, but I will tell you that once I did get the email that it was expired, that's when I contacted the office.
Yeah.
And that's when I was walked through the specifics of what needed to happen in order to get reinstated.
Got it. Thank you.
Can I ask one more question, Mr. McBroom? R8 zone district? Yeah, this is owner occupied only, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. This isn't the issue at hand, because the issue is that you operated after your permit expired. And I apologize if you think this is a gotcha moment, it's not. I just want you to know that when if we offer you any relief in the amount of time that you're gonna have to wait to reapply, as you told us here today, you don't actually live in this property. And yet your application that, we see here when you appealed, that when you applied and when you appealed is for an owner occupied. And you don't live there, so that does not qualify as owner occupied. So I want you to consider that as you move forward. Regardless of what we decide today, that does not mean that you're going to be eligible going forward. So just keep that in mind. If we decide to offer relief, that does not negate the rules and requirements that zoning will have for you, okay?
Okay, so let me ask you, I understand what you're saying, so let me ask you this question, because I just want to be clear. I'm
Yeah.
not here to break rules, I'm
Sure.
not here to overstep.
No, we can tell.
Understand.
Yeah.
So, does that mean that you can do a 30-day rental there, or is that what that means?
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
it was a lot to read over
I understand.
and to understand, and to be clear, and to keep asking questions, so I think I've talked to Alicia probably 50 times, trying to make sure I get
Aren't
things
you lucky?
correct.
She's so nice.
So,
Yeah, 30-day rentals are fine. It's 30, right? It's not 31, it's 30. Those are fine. But to operate as a short-term rental with a short-term rental permit,
okay,
that zone doesn't allow you to live elsewhere and rent out that house.
Okay.
So perhaps when you first applied, were you living there full-time?
no.
Well, we missed that
Right.
one, so. But regardless of what we decide here today, I just want you to keep in mind the rules governing, that zone, the zone that you're in, the type of zoning that is applied to your property, okay?
Understood.
Okay,
And I
Thank
would
you.
just step in and say, you would also have to ensure you comply with any other requirements that there may be for over 30-day rentals.
yes, there's a landlord registration that's required, I think it's quite reasonable, like $10 or $15, something like that. But
Okay.
you do have to have that permit on file. They are very conscientious about letting you know when the permit has to be renewed. So by all means, if you're going to be a long-term landlord, you want to make sure you do that right too.
Okay. And so where did you start with that procedure?
Well, let's wrap up this issue at hand, and then we can send you to the right folks
Okay.
for work on that,
Okay.
that effort, okay?
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? No? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing and discuss this amongst ourselves, and we appreciate your time and your candor. It's been a very candid day.
So I would just say I feel like this is similar, not exactly the same as the previous two cases. A mistake was made, actions were taken to rectify the issue. There were no stays once the notice of violation was sent. So given the very narrow issue that we are considering, I'm comfortable with offering the same relief that we have offered to the previous two appellants, knowing that even if she goes in on Monday to apply, she can't get a short-term rental permit. So at this property, at
I
least.
agree.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Yep. Jen? Boy, What an easy day. Okay, Nicole, do you want to make a motion?
Sure. I move that the board finds that the zoning administrator did not err, but that we grant relief and allow the appellant to apply for a short-term rental permit at this property on Monday.
Second. Can I see a show of hands? Great. Okay. So again, thank you so much for your time. The fact that you can go in on Monday doesn't give you carte blanche for an STR. And these folks can give you great guidance on how to be a good landlord, because Nashville certainly needs them. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day. All right.
Our next case is STR 2026-001, Spencer Carter, 1527 23rd Avenue North. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, the STR permit was revoked because the STR is not the principal or primary residence of the owner permit holder. This is governed by BL 2020-187. The decision of the board is whether or not the zoning administrator erred in cancellation or revocation of the permit. The board has discretion under BL 2023-136. This is an RS5 zone district, which allows only owner-occupied permits. On April 19th of 2022, Spencer and Denise Carter acquired 1527 23rd Avenue North, Nashville, Tennessee 37208. On September 22nd, 2022, an owner-occupied permit application was submitted for the property. On September 29th of 2022, the application was processed, the permit was issued. The permit listed two billing contacts, one Spencer Carter with the address of 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro, Tennessee 37130, and number two Denise Carter with the same address. The permit was revoked for lack of primary residency on October 3rd of 2025. The appellant previously had an owner-occupied permit for the property at 610 Vester. The permit was issued on August 29th of 2022. This is a horizontal property regime, which includes 608 Vester Avenue. The permit was revoked for lack of primary residency. On September 21st of 2022, a hotline complaint was called in. The caller had received an owner-occupied short-term rental notification letter for the property at 610 Vester. The caller stated that no one lived in the house. Inspector John Fells opened an investigation. A business entity search of the Secretary of State website found that 610 Vester Avenue LLC with the address, principal address listed as 450 East Main, Murfreesboro. The registered agent address is the same, and the application for 610 Vester included the following: an insurance policy declaration for proof of insurance for 610 Vester Avenue, which has the named insured as Spencer Carter and Denise Carter with the mailing address of 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. An insurance policy declaration for proof of insurance for 608 Vester Avenue, which has the named insured as Spencer Carter and Denise Carter with the mailing address of 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. Tennessee Secretary of State document of Articles of Organization Limited Liability Company for 608 Vester Avenue LLC, which has the registered agent's office as 450 East Main, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The LLC complete address for the principal office is 450 East Main, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Rutherford County. The business entity search on the Tennessee Secretary of State website for 608 Vester LLC confirmed that the address information submitted on the application and that the LLC status is active. The HOA contact information form lists the owner contact information as Denise Carter with the address of 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. This information was handwritten. A non-owner occupied STRP permit affidavit was notarized in Rutherford County. The Airbnb website for the ad for 610 Vester Avenue host page has a picture of the house at 450 East Main, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. On November 14th of 2022, the permit was revoked. November 15th of 2023, the property was quitclaim deeded from Denise and Spencer Carter to Denise Carter. February 28th of 2024, an owner-occupied permit application was submitted for the property by Denise Carter. On March 1st, the application was denied for lack of primary residency. On October 21st of 2024, the property was quitclaim deeded from Denise Carter to Presley Carter. October 14th of 2024, an owner-occupied permit application was submitted for the property by Presley Carter. The permit application was processed, the permit was issued. A review of the documents submitted in the permit application for the property on appeal today, 1527 23rd Avenue North, found a 2021 real property tax statement for proof of taxes paid on the property, and it has the names as Spencer and Denise Carter with the mailing address of 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. Spencer Carter signed the affidavit for the permit, and the affidavit was notarized in Rutherford County. The warranty deed for this property lists 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, as the address to send the tax bills, and the deed was notarized in Rutherford County. The deed of trust for this property has a 1-to-4 family rider on page 2. The occupancy is also deleted from page 2. This means that the owners do not have to live at the property as a condition of the loan. On page 2 of the rider itself, F notes the borrower's occupancy is deleted. G outlines the assignment of leases, and H outlines the assignment of rents. The title company on the deed of trust is TriStar Title and Escrow LLC, 1535 West Northfield Boulevard, Murfreesboro. The Metro Nashville property assessor lists the owners of the property as Spencer and Denise Carter with the mailing address for the property is 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The Metropolitan trustee lists the owners of the property as Spencer and Denise Carter with the mailing address for the property as 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. A business entity search on the Secretary of State website for 1527 23rd Avenue North LLC found an active LLC under the name with the principal address and mailing address listed as 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro, and the registered agent's address also 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. The 2022 and 2023 Rutherford County trustee property tax records for 450 East Main, Murfreesboro, list the owners of the residential property as Denise and Spencer Carter. There are 2 addresses and 3 dwelling units at this property as seen on the Rutherford County parcel map and Rutherford County pictometry. They are 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro, which is the main dwelling, and 116 South Highland Avenue, which has 2 dwellings. The current owner is listed as 450 East Main Street LLC, which was quitclaim deeded for $0 from Spencer and Denise Carter on August 14th, 2023. The registered agent address, principal address, and mailing address for 450 East Main Street LLC is 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. Following this, you'll have in your packet a photo of the house. Rutherford County trustee property tax records on 116 South Highland Avenue list the same owner information as 450 East Main Street. The Rutherford County assessor of properties property record card for 116 South Highland Avenue shows the 2 other dwelling units for the property, followed by the street view of the 3 dwelling units. Both of the 2 dwelling units at 116 South Highland are short-term rental units, as evidenced by the Airbnb ads that accompany the property assessor's record cards for each. On March 5th, 2025, VIP Murfreesboro magazine features an article titled Embracing a Home's History, in which the appellant and his wife describe how they found the former Darrell Woods Hastings home located at 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro, and fell in love with it, and moved in earlier than they had planned in July of 2022. February the 10th of 2023, a statement of information corporation was filed with the State of California Office of the Secretary of State for Spencer for Hire Incorporated. The type of business was recorded as residential construction. Both the street address and principal office of the corporation and the mailing address of corporation were recorded as 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The officers of the corporation were recorded as Spencer Carter, Chief Executive Officer, Denise Carter, Secretary and Chief Financial Officer. And again, the address recorded is 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. The Secretary of State of Tennessee website had, as of September 13th, 2025, Spencer J. Carter's voter registration with the address of 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. Also, Rutherford County Election Commission had Spencer J. Carter voter registration at address 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. Their records showed that he voted on November 5th, 2024. Denise Carter's voter registration in Sacramento, California, which is inactive, lists the mailing address as 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. And the Secretary of State of Tennessee website, as of September 13th of 2025, had Denise Carter's voter registration with the address of 610 Vester. September 17th of 2025, on this date during the investigation, the appellant had a Ford F-150 Super Crew Cab pickup truck registered at 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro, with a plate expiration of January 31st, 2026. The appellant's wife, Denise Carter, has a white Tesla Model S registered in her name with a license plate BMW2075. On September 18th of 2025, Inspector Phelps made a site visit to 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. He photographed the cargo van with the company name and logo of Spencer for Hire, as well as the white Tesla Model S with a license plate BMW 2075 at this address. I took the findings to the zoning administrator for review, and based on the evidence gathered, he said revoke the permit. Revocation letter was sent on September the 19th of 2025. By law, the Codes Department is required to give 15 days notice before the revocation goes into effect. Therefore, the revocation went into effect on October the 4th of 2025. The last documented stay was in September of 2025. January the 8th of 2026, the appeal was filed. It was discovered during the investigation that the appellants also own a property at 1615 Hyman Street, Nashville, Tennessee. Inspector Phelps cited the property for advertising and operating a short-term rental at this address without a permit. There was also an LLC located associated with this property. It was 1615 Hyman LLC. A business entity search with the Tennessee Secretary of State website found 1615 Hyman LLC with the principal address, registered address, and mailing address at 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro. The Carters also own and operate a short-term rental at 1036 Trout Way, Sevierville, Tennessee. The property owner is listed as 1836 Trout Way LLC with the principal address, registered agent address, and mailing address recorded as 450 East Main Street, Murfreesboro.
You need a drink?
Several.
Anyone have questions for staff? How could you not? Okay, I'm just teasing. Okay, great. So you have heard the spiel. You have 5 minutes between the three of you, okay? Whoever is speaking, we need your name and your address for the record, and you can tell us all about your situation. Oh, just to double check, no one's come in, right, for opposition to this case? No? Okay, super. Sorry. Please go ahead.
I'm Spencer Carter. I live at 1527 23rd Avenue North in Nashville. I brought my wife Denise. We're separated, but she manages our Airbnbs and does all the paperwork. And I brought my attorney that I thought I was going to need because I didn't think I was going to make it here. My mother got sick and I've been spending time with her, but I'm here, so he's just here to look pretty. But he does our LLCs and that kind of legal stuff for us too, in case that information comes up. But I prepared a document for him to read that I'll just read myself because it's efficient.
Before you do that, could I just trouble your attorney for his name and the name of his practice?
It's Ryan Bean, 4404 Hunt Place, and I own a title company, so I do real estate transactions all day.
Great, thank you. Okay, go right ahead with your statement.
Sorry. We lived in California where I owned a construction business for 20 years. The first investment property we bought in 2021 was in Murfreesboro at 450 Main Street, which I believe we've heard enough times up here. It has a large historic home. That's my personal restoration project. It also has 2 small houses on the back of the property, which you mentioned. We had to do very little to work on cleaning it up, a little bit of paint, a couple repairs, and we listed it as an STR. In Murfreesboro, you don't need permits to have an STR. We also established an LLC there for our business to run Airbnbs. So 450 East Main Street is my office in a historic restoration project. So it continues to be my office. So what you've witnessed is a lot of documentation that gets sent to the office. We bought 2 houses in East Tennessee. Both were STRs. We bought them both furnished. They were both in remote areas that don't get mail service and don't require STR permits either. We had all the documentation for those properties sent to 450 East Main Street. The first house we bought in Nashville was at 1615 Hayman. We also bought it furnished and listed it as an STR. Then we bought my house at 23rd Avenue, which was a new build and no furniture. And we also bought a pair of townhouses on the opposite side of Tennessee, or opposite side of Nashville, which was also a new build with no furniture. In July of 2022, we finally moved from California to Nashville and moved into 23rd Avenue as our primary residence. I began to remodel the 2 little houses in Murfreesboro while my wife went about furnishing the other houses in Nashville. We ended up separated. She moved to Vester. We both pulled our own owner-occupied permits, living separately, which we acquired. But I think most important thing here, I think, is to establish that I have always lived at 1527 23rd Avenue, and 450 East Main Street is an office, again, in a historic restoration project. So that is not where I live, but where I would like to have all of my mail go to. But we try to stay within the boundaries of their, well, anyhow, I think that's about covers it for what I have. Right? Yeah.
Anyone else want to pipe up? You've got a few minutes left on the time. No? Okay. Anyone have questions for, well, I see Mr. McBroom has stepped forward. Something you would like to add?
Well, the contention was put forth that Mr. and Ms. Carter are separated. My inspector checked it with Davidson County and Rutherford County today. There's nothing in file concerning a legal separation or divorce in either county.
Thank you, Mr. McBroom. Okay. Nicole.
I have questions. So, the documentation is tough to overcome for me on this. Like, I'm just gonna be quite honest. I searched and searched. Like, I am really willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. I struggle to see anything in the documentation that proves that you live at 1527 23rd Avenue. So I had a couple of questions. If you live in Nashville, why are you registered to vote in Murfreesboro?
That was the circumstance. So if you look at the records, I was registered to vote in Nashville. When voting came for the primary election, I was doing a renovation in Murfreesboro. My house was rented out the day of the election. It was convenient for me, and as far as I know, legal for me, because I own houses in Murfreesboro. I registered to vote in Murfreesboro so that I could vote for the presidential election. That's the only thing I voted for, and I just didn't think anything of it afterwards until this came up, and since then it's been rectified, and I'm registered again in Davidson County.
Deadline to register to vote is quite a few months before Election Day, is it not?
Yeah, but it states that I was approved to vote actually the day before the actual election, so that's in documentation that I have if you.
Your council has some kind of documentation he wants to offer, but we weren't given this. Is this something that's not in our packet?
No, ma'am, 8 copies.
Okay,
Perfect.
great.
Where do I start with?
Start with Mr. Cash right here.
While he's doing that, I also,
In retrospect,
Those are all 8.
I kind of wish I just hadn't voted and created an issue, but I don't feel that way. I would have
sorry. Oh, sorry, okay. Your car is registered in Murfreesboro?
One car is,
One car. Do you have a car that's registered?
yes,
In
which was
Nashville.
left out of the information, which is a little suspicious to me, but the van that he took a picture of is
That-
registered at my house.
Which, okay.
When I bought the truck, is that what you want information on? Mm-hmm. So I bought the truck as an extra vehicle
Okay,
because my van fits one other person.
got it,
It's not a family vehicle per se.
got it.
I bought it, my intention was as a work vehicle, it stays in Murfreesboro at the office. 'Cause-
Okay. So
because
it's
I-
for your business?
Right, so because
Makes
I
sense.
rent out 23rd, I don't want to leave my truck at 23rd when guests end up there. And I don't use it that often, so it sits at that house in Murfreesboro more often than not. Which is a question I have for the DMV, because I don't understand legally where it should be registered. So the sticky thing there is I bought it in Dixon, and they asked me if I wanted them to register it, so they registered it for me in Dixon County with my 23rd Avenue address.
Got it.
But
Okay.
it sits in Murfreesboro, so I would like to know if somebody could clarify where it should be registered at when it is mostly in Murfreesboro.
Murfreesboro, got it.
But my registered van that I use is registered to my house.
Okay, and, I'm not really concerned about whether there's documentation that y'all are separated, that you.
We've
as-
learned something about that. We thought saying we're separated is good enough, but we know that STR now requires legal separation papers, which feels a lot like divorce. And I
Well-
don't think we're there yet, hopefully, so.
I will just say, okay, I'm not gonna get into that, because
I know, we don't
I'll
want
get in
marriage
trouble with
counseling
Joey.
either, so we're gonna.
I'll get in trouble with Joey. Well, I don't think that, we can consider whatever information you provide to us. So
Right.
when you're talking, what they
Right.
require to do something on their end is different than what we can consider as an appeals board. So for my purposes, saying you're separated is good enough for me.
I would like to point out one thing on some of this
Yeah.
documentation, and I know
Yeah.
you said there's a lot of stuff that is in this file that's hard to overlook. A lot of things that are also hard to overlook is a fair amount of the first 40 pages were printed in 2022. A lot of this documentation is old. It's predicated from a past experience that they had where they did not understand the STR permit process. And again, some of this, there are new printouts, but there is a good section of all the documents that you've been provided that were 2022.
Well, and I think the reason for that, and maybe you're about to get to this, Mr. McBroom, is in order to have, it's not whether he lives there now, it's when he applied for the owner-occupied permit, which was in 2022, he needed to have established residency at that time. You're saying that you moved
That's where we
in
moved to.
in July of 2022, so.
I've never lived at 450 Main Street because it's a restoration project.
Got it. But I think that's why we have documentation
Right,
from
and
them,
that-
because that's what we're looking at. We're not
Right.
about, like,
So that's
do
why
you
I
live
feel
there
like
now?
I feel like more, it's like I'm trying to prove I don't live there versus where I actually live.
It's sticky, I
Is
understand.
what it looks
Well-
like to me.
I think, one of the things that I wish I had a court reporter to read it back to me, but you have it in your statement there. Could you read me the part you said that when you moved from California, read me that section again, that you moved into 1527 23rd Avenue, and that has always been where you've lived?
That's pretty much what it says. We lived in California under the first investment property. The first house we bought, no. In July of 2022, we moved to Nashville from California and lived at 23rd Avenue. I began to remodel the smaller houses in Murfreesboro while Denise furnished our houses in Nashville. And we separated, so that's all it says about when we moved into 23rd.
Right, but at the same time, you claimed that you lived as the owner for an owner-occupied permit on Vester Avenue.
Right, so we separated, she moved into Vester. It was pretty quick when we moved here,
August 29th to September 22nd?
yes. Do we want to do marriage counseling here? I'd be
No, but
more-
that's 2022.
Yes.
It's 2026, and so we're still going, that you're separated, you're not legally separated.
Right, we
Okay.
work well together, we do not live well together.
All right. Thank you for this. I will.
Did you want to, sorry, I think
Well,
Ms. Carter was.
I'm going to finish
Okay.
my point, and then Ms. Carter can make hers. I do appreciate this. This is a requirement to get
Right,
the permit.
Right.
So very often, we'll have folks come to us and say, look, my driver's license says I live there. Well, you own the house. You're able to get a driver's license that shows that you live there. But it's interesting to me that this was issued the day before you applied for the permit. This was issued showing that your residence is 23rd Avenue.
right.
The day before you applied for a permit for which you would
Okay.
need this. So it isn't
So
as
I moved here in
compelling.
July and applied for the permit in
September,
September,
the day after you got your driver's license.
right.
Right,
You had a California.
So I had a
driver's license.
California
Right.
driver's license and changed it to Tennessee,
right,
all part of the paperwork trail when you move here.
right.
Okay.
But it's also, you own the house. So it doesn't necessarily prove you live there. It proves that you're able to use that address for your,
Okay. I did bring proof from my neighbors.
I see those two letters and I
Who will tell you
appreciate
that I
that.
do live
Yeah.
there and have relationships with them, so they all know that I live there.
So we've had this happen a few times. Those letters were not provided in the time frame that's laid out. So it's up to us whether or not we want to accept them. Do we need to make a motion to accept them? I can't remember how that works.
I think if he provides 8 copies, then.
Yeah, if he provides you don't need to
Then
make
we
a
don't need to make a motion to accept those? Okay, good. All right.
Chairman Caputo,
Yes.
the rules of procedure state that if you wish to defer the case, the hearing, to digest the information, then you can do that. That would be done by motion, but that's the only motion that would be necessary.
Okay. No, I don't think we want to do that. Please,
If no one
Terrence.
else, Mr. Carter, I have a question or two.
You guys were really bored until now, huh?
So, if all that you've said now, up till now is true, why sit for an article in 2025 where you and your now estranged wife were interviewed? And the thrust of the article is very clearly that you all moved earlier than you anticipated in July of 2022. You rented out a portion, the back portion of that. I'm actually familiar with that house. I went to college at MTSU. It's a beautiful house. I used to
It's
live
gonna
down the
be
street
better.
from it. Yeah. I used to live down the street from it, as a matter of fact, and would walk past it very often, neither here nor there. But after renting those
All right,
portions
can
out.
I ask
of
what
the
year that
home-
was?
a long time ago, 1997.
So that was during the Hastings, okay.
Yeah, yeah. But that aside, after you rented those portions out, it discusses in the article that you fell in love with the people and decided to move to Murfreesboro. And then it talks about your neighbors who invited you over for banana pudding, and this is critical, shortly after you moved in. To what could they have been referring, if not the moment at which you decided to take up residence at that home?
So I'm very proactive in meeting neighbors on any house I own.
Okay,
So when we moved all the furniture into Main Street to make it an Airbnb,
okay,
Main Street's a very everybody knows everybody.
yeah, that makes sense.
So
Lots
the
of
house had been
historic
sitting
homes.
vacant for 3 years. Everybody wanted to know who we were.
Okay,
So we met a lot of people. They were great people.
Okay.
We've become very good friends with the neighbor right next door whose daughter
Okay.
is the editor for the magazine.
okay,
She wanted to do an article on the house because it hadn't been covered in decades. We had just finished the Airbnb properties out back, and we thought it was a great opportunity to advertise the houses.
so the daughter was a close relationship.
The daughter is the neighbor across the street from us, who we've become friends with. Her daughter is the
Okay.
editor of the
And
magazine.
she wouldn't have been tight enough on the facts to know that you hadn't yet moved in?
It doesn't say we moved into that house. We
It says
moved,
you had banana pudding shortly after you moved
That-
in.
we had my wife's parents, my in-laws come to visit us, and we showed them the house and introduced them to neighbors.
Okay,
The banana pudding people, he served in Vietnam, like my
Okay.
father-in-law did.
okay,
So their bond was instant and invited us over to have pudding.
okay.
Not living at the house, we had just
Okay.
met the people in the neighborhood.
So in no time since the article issue was there time to correct a factual, that's a material factual inaccuracy if in fact it's not
The
true.
magazine?
Yeah,
Well, I wasn't about to announce in the magazine, well, we're separated and we just
that,
moved
you
here, so
don't
that
have
kind
to
of
announce
stuff.
you're
But-
separated, but certainly if you weren't living there at the time, that's fairly material.
Right, so there is I would call it a not a punctuation error, error in the sense that it says we moved in July of 2022. We didn't move in July of
That's an
2022.
untrue sentence. That's not punctuation.
Okay. And I can hear it two different ways, but we definitely did move in 2022, but I did not move into that house to live. But we did move into it in 2021 as an Airbnb.
Okay.
How was the banana pudding?
It's not.
I don't want to be negative here, but banana gives me heartburn, and it tastes okay, but it doesn't taste good 8 hours later.
I don't like banana pudding, so, yeah.
So can I clarify some
Yes.
things with the STR
Sure.
stuff? Since that's primarily what I handle for us. I handle all the STR, like the management, marketing, and then Spencer handles all the maintenance. And so a lot of what we refer to in this VIP article is that we bought the house and we moved in 2021 furniture, and we had to repaint it because in 2021 and in 2022, the Main Street address, it was an Airbnb. It was listed on Airbnb. It's included in the paperwork. It's an Airbnb. So we did this press piece because we're trying to market that the two back houses were now Airbnbs. And we had stopped Airbnb-ing the Main Street address in early, I think, 2024. So I just wanted to clarify that I think that's some confusion, is that when we're talking about Airbnb in 2021, those back houses weren't Airbnb'd until 2022.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. I appreciate that
You
clarification.
did bring up the accuracy of that magazine article, and in the article, you
I
can see
did.
several places where it says, we're gonna do the kitchen, we're gonna do, like,
Sure.
the house is outdated,
Sure.
hasn't been touched in 30
Sure.
years, so it screams, we're going to remodel it.
I think the problem that I'm having is you have an article that suggests that you moved in a certain period of time, along with all the other indicia of residency somewhere other than in Nashville, and that all taken together creates, as you know, as Ms. Williams just said, creates a sort of a problem.
Well, in the article, it does say, we moved earlier than expected in July of 2022. It
Right.
doesn't specify that we moved into that house in July of 2022. It just said we had moved earlier than had anticipated.
Oh,
Because
gosh.
that's what had happened.
I just
weren't
don't feel like the record supports that assertion.
That's okay.
I mean, the house was still an Airbnb through 2022.
Sure.
And now there's no bathrooms. There's
Right.
no pictures of bathrooms. But for Hayman, we did rent out Hayman without a permit. And that was because we had at that time, 4 houses, and they were all in different counties, and none of them had well, we didn't think that we needed a permit in Nashville because we didn't need a permit in Murfreesboro, and then we didn't need one in Sevierville, and then we didn't need one in Campbell County. Now we have to have one in Sevierville, but it didn't even dawn on us that we would need a permit for Hayman. So,
Okay, but hold up for a second. You're saying you didn't know you needed a permit for,
yeah, in 2022.
Hayman was the first house
Yeah.
we owned in Nashville.
In 2022, so
but,
They
it was
got shut
early,
down.
it was like February or March in 2022, and then that's why we applied for the permit in Nashville later in 2022 for the houses on 23rd and Vester.
so the information that we have says that it was discovered during the investigation for this case
Not true.
that you also own a property on Hyman Street and you were cited. So I'm confused about the timeline there.
This has been an ongoing investigation. There was no break between the properties.
Can you clarify what you mean? There was no break?
Once we determined that the number of properties that they owned and that they had short-term rentals, we were looking at all the properties. So when we had the evidence for 610 Vester sufficient for the zoning administrator to say revoke the permit, fine. But the investigation continued.
All right.
They represented evidence that they found in 2022
From Haman.
from Haman.
Okay.
And they, at that point in time, tried to rectify those problems. They were ignorant at the time when they first came to Nashville to the STRP permit, process.
Which is also what happened when we moved in July and then separated in the end of August. When I moved to Vester and he was staying at 23rd, we had no clue. Being separated, we couldn't have our own permits. We didn't know that was, we didn't understand that. And so that's what caused this whole chaos with Vester. And then when mine was revoked, I wasn't even done moving in, like, I was still getting furniture when the neighbor called and said that no one lived there. So my car was at 610
Mind you,
Vester.
the neighbor you're friends with now.
Oh, yeah, we're friends now. But the house next door, because it's a townhouse, no one had lived in that side for a long time. And then, so yeah, I didn't understand, and he didn't understand that being separated, we couldn't have our own houses and our own STRs. Obviously, we know that now, and after living at Vester for a year, I didn't rent it out. I reapplied again, and when I was denied, they didn't tell me that I was denied because of proof of residency. They told me I was denied because, as we now know, we don't have legal separation documents. And they wanted those, and I couldn't provide them. So I was told at the time that's why I couldn't get a permit when I applied again in '24.
And then you got a permit in your child's name? Was
Gave
that?
her the property.
Gave her
Yeah,
the property?
Yeah.
And she
did-
lives there.
She decided she wanted to
She
live
rents
in
out the other-
Nashville, and instead of paying rent somewhere else, why wouldn't she just move into her own property?
It's cheaper for her. She rents out the other side to college students.
Got it. Okay.
'Cause
Anyone
I'm a mean
else?
dad and won't pay her rent.
Okay, any other questions for the appellants before we close the public hearing?
I personally would just like to invite you to come see the house. If you know the house.
I do know
See
the
some of
house,
the
yeah.
stuff that's being done to it.
Okay. All right, we're going to close the public hearing, which means unless we have additional questions for you guys, we won't be communicating again on the record. So as we have discussion, resist the temptation to weigh in, okay? So you can close those mics, please, and you're welcome to go back to your seats unless we reopen the public hearing. Our conversation has come to an end. Okay.
I have thoughts,
Share.
and I've changed my mind.
Okay.
Terrence, can you close your, of course, thank you.
So I appreciate the additional documentation that we got. I appreciate the explanation. The record doesn't look great from what we have, but I think that's why we have these hearings. I personally, I don't give any credence to a magazine article that's like for publicity purposes. I think people say all kinds of things about themselves on the internet, in magazines, whatever. I'm looking at the documentation that we have. I do think it is compelling that we have letters from his neighbors, and one of the neighbors is a sergeant in the Army National Guard. As I understand it, like lying in official documentation, if you are in the armed forces, is like not just frowned upon, but, you know, grounds for discipline. So I don't think we would have a sergeant in the Army National Guard submitting a letter saying, my neighbor does live at this property, if he did not believe that to be the case. I think, like, I'm gonna be quite honest, my driver's license, I haven't updated my address. If I were looking for an owner-occupied short-term rental, I would obviously do that, in order to have my documentation in order. I think we have a vehicle that is registered and was registered at the time at 23rd Avenue. To me, it makes sense that he has a business vehicle that's registered, at the Murfreesboro address. I'm convinced that he lives at 23rd Avenue, but that's my take.
So when we're talking about, I guess, the value of certain pieces of evidence, I think any document, whether it's an article or something else that contains a statement of one of the parties, that could be used to either verify the truth of information that's otherwise provided, or impeach that witness's credibility or that party's credibility as to the truth of piece of evidence provided. I think that's important to consider. And there were statements to that effect. There were statements to the effect of, we moved here in a certain time period, and there were statements in the article saying we then moved in. So also, it's hard to overcome, even though the explanation for the change up in the voter registration was somewhat reasonable. It's still the case that the registration was in Rutherford County at the time, at the relevant time. So for me, I don't see it the way that you do. And I would find it hard, just based on the explanations in the letter of one person, who, while he may be oath bound, I don't think that overcomes the other evidence that we're seeing. I think that, a person that you encounter at an address doesn't necessarily mean that you've observed them living there, and I don't think that the statement goes that far, unless I misread it.
He says, "I am writing to provide this statement of confirmation for my neighbor, Spencer Carter does reside at 1527 23rd Avenue North." So that's pretty, like, black and white. I will say, I don't think they ever actually said we moved to Murfreesboro. I understand we can infer things in the way the article is written, but I do want to say, like, they don't ever say in this article, we moved to Murfreesboro in July of 2022. So, and we also have from another neighbor as well.
So, I am not as, I definitely have softened, but I'm not as convinced as you are, Nicole, and I think after 4 years, the fact that there's very little, we've heard this before, like, oh no, I really do live here. Well, why does all of the evidence suggest otherwise? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they weren't looking for evidence to support the claim.
Well, we have evidence from the,
Right, but you don't need to advocate for them. I heard everything you heard. All I want to say is, it's a 6-month waiting period, right?
no.
It
If
is.
they don't,
Isn't it
if we
187?
No, if we determine that they don't live there, they can't get a permit unless they can prove that they establish residency.
I don't, well, and that's the point. That is not up to us. That is up to the zoning administrator, whether or not they are eligible for permits. We would have to say that the zoning administrator erred.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think, and we heard many explanations, I don't think we heard anything that would lead me to believe that the zoning administrator erred. Now, am I willing to say, go back to zoning and plead your case with them? Yeah, but I don't think that we can determine by, oh my goodness, well, we heard the whole story, and yes, obviously zoning made a mistake. I don't think we're in that position. I don't feel we're in that position. You can have a different opinion.
Right, I think we have the power to make that determination. It's whether we think that there was an error.
Yeah, I, kind of with you, Julie. The totality of the evidence for me isn't enough to say that the zoning administrator erred. Honestly, like, I wish we had a whiteboard where we could plot some of this out, because it is confusing as heck.
Beautiful mind-ish.
And for me, if there's that much confusion, I have a really hard time accepting the most recent evidence as that he's just a good neighbor. And so, I don't know, I'm on the fence, and, no, I'm not on the fence. I don't think the zoning administrator erred in this case.
Mike, what say you?
I agree. I don't believe that the zoning administrator erred. I don't know where the appellant lives. I don't know if we'll be able to determine it, but I, at least during the investigation, I don't believe that the zoning administrator erred.
I think we have come to this point in the past, and we've, when Mr. Hargis has been here, kind of, adding to the discussion, we've kind of left it that when circumstances change, circumstances can change. So I don't think it's this is as much of the end of the story as it might appear if we don't decide that the zoning administrator erred, if that gives you any comfort at all, Nicole.
Well, I don't need comfort. I'm gonna lose this vote, which is fine. That's why there's not just a supreme ruler who gets to decree these things. Yeah, so I've made my case.
Okay. I'm gonna make a motion that we determine that the zoning administrator did not err in this case. And that will be the end of the discussion.
Second.
Can I see a show of hands? Okay, great. Folks, thank you so much. Oh, I'm so sorry, you're right, I never do that. I know, my apologies.
Acknowledge.
Against, Ms. Williams votes against. Folks, thank you so much for your time today. You can follow up with zoning, but we really appreciate your time and your efforts and the work you put into coming here today. So. I think it's 187 is actually a 6-month ban. Sorry, I'm gonna let Mr. McBroom weigh in since he's the man I'm talking about.
Revocation carries with it a 1-year, wait.
Revocation carries a 1-year ban. It doesn't matter that the ordinance is 187.
That's correct. I think you are confusing it with operating without a permit as opposed to operating
right.
with an expired permit.
Got it.
You got a 1 year and a 6-month there,
Got
but
it.
a revocation, 1 year.
Okay, thank you. But it is not incorrect for me to say that they can follow up with zoning, even though we didn't offer any relief.
After their 1 year
Exactly.
period is up, they can reapply. That's how the ordinance reads.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thanks again, folks. We really appreciate your time. What do we have next?
Our next case is, and I apologize, the package that you were sent has a typo on it. It says STR 2026-030. It's actually 2026-002. This is 1108A Biltmore Drive, Cynthia Rich, Representative Carmen Rich, and it's an expired permit. The short-term rental property the property operated as a short-term rental with an expired permit. This is an R20 zone district, which allows only owner-occupied permits. This is governed by 2016-257 as the permit was issued September 21st of 2016. And in accordance or pursuant to 6.28.030.R.6.B, upon the finding of the Board of Appeals that a short-term rental property is operated without a permit, there shall be a waiting period of up to 1 year from the date of such finding for the property to become eligible for an STRP permit as determined by the board. The length of the waiting period shall be based upon whether the operator was aware or unaware of the requirement for the STRP have a permit, and evidence to be evaluated in making the decision may include, but is not limited to, the testimony of the operator, the testimony of neighbors, and others with knowledge of the STRP operation, evidence that the operator was informed of the requirement and disregarded this information, evidence that the operator had looked into the requirements and misunderstood them, prior or repeat offenses by the operator under this section, and whether the operator, upon being informed of the requirement, obtained or attempted to obtain a permit before renting the STRP again. The board has discretion under BL 2023-136. On December the 7th of 1995, Cynthia Rich acquired the property at 1108A Biltmore Drive, Nashville, Tennessee, 37204. On September the 20th of 2016, an owner-occupied STRP permit application was submitted for the property by the appellant. September the 23rd of 2016, the application was processed, permit was issued, and the permit was renewed each subsequent year. On March 26th of 2025, the property was quitclaim deeded from Cynthia Annette Rich to Cynthia Annette Rich Living Trust. On April 25th of 2025, Inspector David Fravitt emailed the appellant quoting the section of the STRP ordinance requiring an owner-occupied permit to be issued to a natural person and not a trust. On April 26th of 2025, the property was quitclaim deeded from Cynthia Annette Rich Living Trust to Cynthia Annette Rich. Due to the change in ownership, the automated online renewal system did not send the renewal notice. However, since the first Metro STRP ordinance and every succeeding STRP ordinance, the permit expiration is 365 days from the permit issue date. The permit owner the permit owner bears the responsibility for renewing the permit on a timely basis prior to its expiration. Additionally, the STRP ordinance does not require the Department of Codes and Building Safety to send a notice. It is done as a courtesy. The permit expired on September 23rd, 2025, and there were 2 documented stays after the permit expiration, one in October, one in November. November 22nd of 2025, the property was on the November list by Metro's compliance contractor, Granicus Host Compliance of Properties Advertising and Operating with an expired permit. Inspector John Phelps verified that the permit had expired. The ad remained posted and with documented stays after the permit had expired. Inspector Phelps sent a notice of violation to the appellant, and the ad remains posted, but there have been no documented stays since the appellant received the notice of violation. The ad remained posted, and Inspector Phelps made a site visit to the property and posted a stop work order, which he documented with photographs. January the 2nd of 2026, Attorney Kevin Montgomery emailed Inspector David Fravitt and on behalf of the appellant. On January 5th through the 7th, there was email correspondence between Inspector Fravitt and Mr. Montgomery and Ms. Rich, in which Inspector Fravitt explained that the permit could not be renewed due to the 2 documented stays after the permit expired, and that it was subject to a 1-year wait to reapply. On January the 8th of 2026, the appeal was filed. The permit has been issued since September of 2016, and during that time, there have been no complaints for the property on the Hub Nashville or the STRP hotline. There are 3 emails and/or letters in opposition.
Just to clarify, we have 2 issues, the expiration, but also the fact that it's not a natural person?
Yes.
No?
Yes,
Yes or no?
that's correct. Well, it's also an ownership change that occurred, but
Right.
but if the zoning administrators deem that if the ownership is returned to the prior ownership on a timely basis, that we will not cancel the permit. But if not, then the permit is canceled by operational law because it's a change of ownership.
Okay.
And she did return ownership as soon as she was informed, hey, you can't
That is
put this in
correct.
an LLC.
Right.
So that's dealt with. We don't
That's-
have to worry about that,
But,
right?
but it was the expiration, it wasn't the change of ownership that
No, but it
Caused the
was the
problem.
change of ownership that caused the 60 and 45-day auto-generated reminder emails not to go out to
got
fail.
it, got it. Okay, makes perfect sense. Okay, anyone else have questions? No? And we have no opposition to this case, right? Here today? Nope. Great, okay. Ms. Rich? Hi. So you've heard the spiel, you've got 5 minutes, microphone is on.
I will try to keep it very limited after your exciting afternoon.
Bless you. And start with your name and your
Sure.
address for the record.
Yes, I am Carmen Rich, and I am Cindy Rich's daughter, Cynthia Rich, who is the owner. Plan please excuse me if I read what I had written down because
Go
I was
right
not
ahead.
prepared for this exciting day. Hello, Mr. Cash, how are you? Good. So our property was briefly placed into a trust as part of a routine estate planning for my mom. We kind of rented out maybe 10 times a year, basically to neighbors whose houses like have a flood, or a lot of the Belmont graduates who come have family members that stay. There's a no policy, there's a no party, no extra person policy on it. It's not really a income generating thing, but it is to keep someone who's going to be retired soon excited, who's not here today. So I'll just say, after our attorney realized that we got this notice on the door, we had no idea. She had not gotten the notice for renewal, which is kind of an old-fashioned mail issue that she did not get, could not find. Yes, it was an error, and she fully accepts that, and we would have never had those two guests stay if we had known that there was no permit. All that to say, it was immediately changed back into ownership for just her and out of the trust, which I disagree with, but we'll go there another day. But during that short period, we didn't receive the renewal notice, so she didn't have a way to do that. Immediately when we got the thing on the door, we went through the pre-approval process, which I might add, Alicia, whoever that is pretty awesome. And kind of walked me through, talked me off the ledge on talking the old lady off the ledge who's not so old yet. So anyways, this was no intention to be non-compliant. There was an administrative oversight tied to this temporary trust transfer, and we acted immediately once we became aware of it. The property is used for income support and just to support our neighborhood. We are Nashville natives. We do not own multiple Airbnbs, and this is not a business that we are totally familiar with, so we try to just follow these permit rules and our occupancy stuff, and we only rent through Airbnb just to keep those family members safe who live around us with insurance policies. So that's kind of really the only reason we even do an Airbnb, so that we are protected. So we have never had any complaints. This is a family-friendly home, and we are just requesting, that the 1 year pre-approval process be waived for us, and that these circumstances are just heard so that you know where we're coming from. Also note that we don't really monitor that Airbnb site probably as often as we should because it's not a primary business. So I kind of blocked it all until we had this hearing to make sure that like we were total compliance. We would never rent out if there wasn't proper documentation. So sometimes I mess around with it, and I saw last night that it was open again and that there were 2 people who were requesting, but again, not operated at all.
I think we have heard that there's kind of like, it renews itself if it's stagnant or if it's latent. So that doesn't shock us. Okay, great.
Can I add one thing?
Please, go
We
right ahead.
did also reach out to everyone in the 1,000-foot radius of the home, mailing out hundreds of letters and helping her do that. We also posted the sign, as Alicia helped me create that at Office Depot, and that is loud and clear in the yard.
Could I follow up just very quickly to ask, what is, and this doesn't, I'm just curious, as you describe the setting, is this like an in-law apartment as part of your mom's home?
No, it's her primary home.
And does she stay there?
She does not.
Okay.
She stays with me and helps me manage my 5 children, which is kind of another reason we like her to rent it out.
Got it. Very reasonable. Okay, anyone have questions? Let me just, so it was, I mean, it's a good, almost 10 years of renewal. And then one got missed. Okay, great. Cole?
I don't have any questions.
Wow, you sure? Tom,
I'll jump in. So I'm have some questions.
your mic.
Sorry. So I have, like, we got like, I think 3 letters or emails from folks because you did your due diligence and put the sign out and sent the notices out. And I don't know if you can answer these, but, the first one seems to be like, unaware that there has been STR activity going on there and is talking about the concerns about future. But the second one seems to be talking about an HOA, and so I'm wondering, I'm trying to get a sense of, yeah, like, it's a different property, but like, is the property that we're here about today, like a single family or duplex or?
Actually, I went to high school at Hillsborough High School, I think with somebody in your family, and I graduated, and we made the home into 2 homes. So it was one house, an old house on the property, and now there's 2 homes. So I think that could be what the people are questioning, because everyone in Nashville's knocking down their homes and putting 2. But
No, I don't know that they were questioning that. I'm just
Oh,
trying
okay.
to
There's
question.
no HOA
I'm
though.
trying to question, like, they're in an HOA and speaking for an HOA, and I guess I'm wondering if there's also a multifamily.
no, there's no
Situation.
HOA,
Okay.
and the properties are not connected.
It looks like the HOA board that they're talking about, they have a duplex.
Okay.
And so they technically have an HOA, but it looks like it's 2 people.
Okay,
That's correct.
Yeah,
okay, oh, I see.
And it does,
they're like, we are
They
the
got 2
HOA
addresses,
board.
but then I saw the address we're here about today has a letter in it, I think. Yeah, yeah, so I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
That seemed
unanimously
correct,
from
but-
the residents of 1040 and 1042.
Yeah, and then the last one, it seems to be, supportive, I guess, reestablish the ability to legally operate, no problem. So that person seems to be close and, cognizant that it has been rented out before and has no problem. Okay, I just wanted to, make sure that folks who had, reached out to us in either opposition or support were acknowledged, or their concerns were acknowledged. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. I think we do see this occasionally, especially when, folks do their due diligence. You send out a letter, and then the letters that we get back don't actually address the issue at hand. They're really they're not about that property, they're about the issue of STRs as a whole, which we could talk about all day long, but I think that is largely what we're seeing here, yeah?
Well, and I think this is for discussion, so I'll stop.
Okay. Any other questions? We can move this one along, right? Okay. We thank you. We are going to close the public hearing and discuss this amongst ourselves, and you'll hear what we decide.
So I think it's instructive that the letters that we got were form letters, basically. And it didn't seem like, as Councilmember Cash pointed out, that some of the folks were even aware that a short-term rental had been operating, which is great. Like, that's
It speaks
ideal.
well.
Like,
Yeah.
that is ideal situation, that neighbors are actually like, no, we don't want this to be happening, but actually it's been happening for 10 years and you clearly didn't even realize it. There's been no complaints. There's been no other issues of compliance. I'm very comfortable with this person reapplying on Monday. Like, that she's been operating in good faith for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
As am I.
I'm almost there. Sorry. It's the documented stays after the permit expired for me.
But that was before the notice of violation and before the stop work order, which to me goes along with,
Yeah, but the ad was
like,
still
yeah.
posted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So if we want to look at December 30th as the start date, I'm good with that.
And what kind of relief do you think is appropriate?
I'm a 90-day kind of person,
So end
but
of next
I
month?
could be, yes.
Okay,
So the end of March?
end of March?
So it'd be March 30th, correct?
Okay, yep.
March 30th is a Monday, and this is what we're saying today, is like, go in there on Monday.
Right,
So,
it's a Monday kind of
okay.
meeting. There you go.
how do you feel, Mike?
I agree.
Okay, let's have a motion.
oh, I'm not gonna make the motion, because my motion would not be that motion, so.
Oh, sorry, you're absolutely right, okay. Well, then, I'm so sorry, you're absolutely right. Should we discuss that a little bit more? I mean, does 90 days seem?
It just
Well, once
seems
we have a motion,
punitive to me, given that the other cases, there were actually more stays. Like, there were more violations after the permit expired. So to me,
Yeah,
that's,
I've kind of been on roughly a 90-day path the entire day.
I do think it sounds
I've been on
punitive.
a Monday
I know,
path
it's
the
a,
entire day.
Monday just happened to be 90
Monday.
days in the other cases.
Well, see, that's the thing, that you are saying the same thing. Those cases did work out to be about 90 days. It just happened to fall on this coming Monday. So I do think we do, Ramon's right, we had an issue with the ad coming back, the ad being up. So that does differentiate it from some of the other cases where people either took the ad down entirely or changed the listing to 31 days. So, I mean, that could justify a different Monday instead of this coming Monday.
I would also say, though, in those other cases, we had property managers
True.
who had hundreds of properties and were very familiar with how the ad posting and all of that works. I do want to give some, at least acknowledgement of the fact that this is a person with one Airbnb who operates it very sparingly. And so, you know, I don't think there was an intention to,
Mislead or.
yeah.
That's a very good point. I'm like a,
Well, I'm gonna make my motion then, and,
well,
we can still discuss it.
okay.
So I'm gonna move that we find that the zoning administrator did not err, and we offer relief, such that the appellant can reapply for a permit on Monday. This coming Monday.
Second.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, show of hands. Oh, look at that. Wonderful. Ms. Rich, thank you so much for your time. Don't worry. I think we've heard enough about banana pudding today.
Such
All
a
right, thanks for your
good-natured room of
time. I
appellants. We've
know.
encountered this in a
See, we
while.
should take a 3-month break more
I
often.
know, right?
Okay, what do we have next? My goodness, this is a long hearing.
Yes, we are at the end.
And who's the lucky winner of the last hearing, the last case of the day?
This is short-term rental 2026-003, 1310 Lischey Avenue, number 306. JSF Ventures LLC, permit application was denied. Property operated as an STRP without obtaining a permit. This is an MUNA zone district where both owner-occupied and non-owner-occupied permits are available. Governed by BL 2024-478. Pursuant to section 6.28.030.b.5.L.6.2 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, upon the determination of the zoning administrator or the zoning administrator's designee that the short-term rental property is operated without having obtained a permit, there shall be a waiting period of 1 year from the date of such determination by the zoning administrator or designee for the property to become eligible for an STRP permit. And the board has discretion under BL 2023-136. August 14th of 2024, JSF Ventures LLC acquired the property at 1310 Lischey Avenue, number 306, Nashville, Tennessee, 37207. The mailing address recorded for the property is 2015 Greenwood Avenue, Nashville, Tennessee, 37206. The owner of this address is Joshua C. Sweat. On September the 5th of 2025, the website platform advertisement was identified and matched to the property by Metro's compliance contractor, Granicus Host Compliance. On October 25th of 2025, Dylan Brierman of Stay Nashville LLC submitted a not owner-occupied STRP permit application on behalf of Joshua Sweat. On October 27th of 2025, the address for the property was on the monthly list for October of properties advertising and operating a short-term rental property without a permit supplied by Granicus Host Compliance. Inspector John Feltz verified that the advertisement was posted and that there were documented stays. Inspector Feltz sent and the owner a notice of violation. On October 28th, 2025, Inspector Robert Osborne processed the application. He saw that Inspector Feltz had sent the notice of violation due to the property having advertised and operated before applying for the STRP permit. Permit application was denied for that reason. Metro's compliance contractor, Granicus Host Compliance Tracking, recorded 3 documented stays based on reviews on the Airbnb ad. two of which occurred in May of 2025 and one in September of 2025. November 17th of 2025, the ad remained posted. Inspector Phelps made a site visit to the property, posted a stop work order, and documented this with photos. December 4th and 8th, 2025, the website advertisements were removed. January 12th, 2026, the appeal was filed. There were no complaints on either the Hub Nashville or the short-term rental property hotline for this property.
Any questions for Mr. McBroom before we hear from the appellants, who have been so patient? Nope? Okay. Hi, gentlemen. You know the drill by now.
Yes.
All right, terrific. So name and address, you have 5 minutes. Don't feel you have to use it all.
Sure. My name is Josh Sweat. I live at 2015 Greenwood Avenue, Nashville, Tennessee, 37206. And we are looking for relief on our short-term rental permit. This is my best friend, Skylar. I've done some short-term rental stuff in the past, and I brought him in on this one, and he's probably very thankful for that right now. So where we're at is we had bought this property, new construction, and just a little backstory on myself is I own a property at 1920 Eastland Avenue and another property at 2015 Greenwood Avenue, which I've kept STR permits up to par for the last 4 years every year. I've used Stephanie Trousdale to help expedite some of this stuff just because I'm not super familiar with the permitting. So that's kind of her role. So she's handled everything with David Freybutt on those two properties for the past few years now. So this property being new construction, Skylar and I decided we were going to put this with the property manager. This being the first one that I wasn't going to manage myself, I assumed that whoever had the listing was the person who would get the permit. So that was just an oversight on my end. I know that the timelines here are a little bit different than kind of what's on screen here. And again, this didn't come to my knowledge until we reached out to Calvin at Nashville Stay when he sent me a response text basically saying, let me back up. We were deciding to take this from the previous property manager because it was not performing at all. We couldn't ever get a hold of him to try and figure out how to improve stays. We took a massive loss the year that we had it with him. And so we finally decided we're going to reach out to Calvin, who a friend of mine had good success with. Calvin was the new property manager. So he said basically that he was going to reach out and get the permit transferred over to him. At which time he basically said, hey, I can't find a STR permit on file. I was shocked, obviously. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you,
Sure.
and you'll get your time back. But I'm just confused about the timing on this.
Yeah,
So, because this doesn't align with what I'm looking at here. So when did you hire a property manager who didn't do a good job? Like what months are we talking about?
from the rip. So the moment we closed on the property, he took on the property, but
So-
he never got a permit.
So August of 2024.
Yes, that's correct.
Can I add to that? Skylar Fox, 112.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Skylar Fox, go ahead.
Yeah, 112 Eventide Drive, Hendersonville, Tennessee, 37075. We closed on it then, but we didn't go live on Airbnb till I believe March. We've actually submitted, everything we're going off of here, I think has been submitted, including all of our stays. I think you guys in this report have 3. There were actually 11 total stays in 2025. We submitted all of that to the email address. So I think you all have copies of it.
Okay.
But from day one, it was under the management of that company.
So March of 2025, you actually started operating.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because we
Sorry.
had a design team go in. So between the moment we closed and March is when they were working on everything.
Okay. And that was under property manager number 1.
Correct.
Who
Yes.
never got a permit.
Never got a permit.
Okay.
So
Continue.
again, yeah, so we were not aware of this. So we reached out to Calvin, then in October, basically to say, hey, we want to go ahead and swap management over to you. That's when he says, hey, I don't see a permit on file. He said he's gonna send emails to Metro. I replied with shock, obviously saying, let me know what I need to do to take care of it. And then October 16th is when we hired Calvin to basically handle the application. We paid a $687 fee to Calvin, plus a $313 state fee. October 20th, he's asking me for documents for EIN, company info, and told me I need to go to the notary for affidavits. On On October 24th, I had not heard back from Calvin yet, so I followed up on the status, and I pushed to complete the notarization with Calvin. And then on November 3rd, the application was denied, which is when we found out this isn't so much as a transfer, there is no permit at all, and it's not that simple. So Calvin basically is telling us that we have to come here and make this appeal. So I contacted Stephanie Trousdale, who handles my other short-term rentals, 20 minutes later, and I said, hey, I'm looking for some guidance and some help here. I knew she worked with David Freebutt on my other two properties, so I asked her if she could jump in and see what she could do, or if there's anything that we could do. November 4th through the 12th was me basically following up with Stephanie. She was sending texts back and forth to me saying she was waiting to hear back from David, that she had inquired to see what we can do, to see if there was anything that we could do to get this permit in order.
Can I just hop in, because
course.
you'll have all this, but I know we'll run out of time, and just say, as you're looking through all this that we've submitted, just the personal side of it, I think I have less than a minute left, but we are not, like, I grew up in Tennessee on a farm, like, we're not investors with tons, I don't have tons of properties. I think what we're wanting to establish here is that we were operating in good faith, responding immediately the second that we found out things were not right, and we've never been in this situation before, but to explain how bad it was with that property manager that we did have, I mean, I think we've uploaded it, we lost $52,000 on a property that should have cash flowed last year. I mean, we've gotten completely wrecked by this, so I think that we're in a position where we're just trying to, if my time's up, that's fine, but.
There'll be lots of conversations.
Yeah.
You'll have an opportunity, I'm sure. So, all right, gentlemen, thank you so much for the information. Who has questions for these fellas? Please go ahead.
So you have two other short-term rentals. Stephanie Trousdale handles those for you.
Correct.
For those two, did she handle getting the permit, and she handles permit renewals?
Yes, so she does everything. So
Okay.
she would bring any affidavits or anything like that to me to sign, but outside of that, there was nothing done
Okay.
on my end, yeah.
On the property that we're talking about here on Lischey, you assumed that the property manager, the original property manager, was going to take care of all of the permit documentation.
Correct. So
Right.
I thought whoever the listing was tied to on Airbnb was the one responsible for getting all the documentation. So because I
Got
was
it.
self-managing the other two, I knew that Stephanie would have to bring me those things to sign, but because I was having him manage it, I just didn't know.
Okay. And that was gonna be my next, question was, why didn't it ring some alarm bells when he didn't bring you anything to sign? But it's because you were managing the other ones, so you're like, okay, I have to sign it because I'm managing these.
Correct.
He was managing, in theory,
Yeah.
this
right.
one.
In theory.
And so your assumption was that he had to sign everything.
Yeah, I just assumed that whoever was managing the property, whoever had the listing would be the one that gets the documentation. That's just what made sense to me in my head. Obviously, I was wrong, so.
And to highlight the breakdown that happened with that property manager as well, I mean, we understood the markets changed and all of that, but we're starting to get alarm bells throughout the year just with the manager in general, because as we've displayed, it's $52,000 in loss on that property. I mean, we only had 11 stays during the whole year. We only had $7,200 in revenue, and so we're spinning wheels going, we're going under on this property. I had never done this before. And it finally gets to a place where we're texting and calling and no responses at all. And so we finally just go, we've got to get a new guy in on this. And we were shocked when we found out we didn't have, it looked like a permit on record. And that same day we put in a course of action in place to rectify that.
Well, I'm sure you feel very appreciative to him for bringing you into this one. I don't know.
I don't think I will ever do this again in life. It's not for me.
Baptism by fire.
Yes.
Look, I do just want to, so there's kind of a theory that when someone operates after a permit has expired, it's a violation. But when somebody operates without a permit at all, it's actually a worse violation because it means you haven't had the safety inspections that are required. And so there's nothing more important, right, than the safety of the visitors here to Nashville. in these cases. So you can understand that you would have had to have gone through that. You would have had to have your fire inspection and all that done for your other properties. And that was a big gaping hole on
Yeah.
this one, right?
Yeah, and
No-
again, I just thought that that was something that he was handling. And so when I reached out to Calvin, this new property manager, he was like, I asked him, I said, is this my responsibility? He was like, well, yes. He said, but I will say, like, your property manager missed step one. Like, he's the one operating it. He should be guiding you through this. And so I just assumed that was being taken care of. So,
I think we've heard so many of these cases, and I think that is really the most important message to take away is no matter who you have for a property manager, the buck stops with you.
yeah, we learned that. Yeah.
Okay.
In hindsight, if there's anything we could do to change that.
Yes,
that
I'm
would-
sure,
yes.
Okay, so in fact, you went a good, 8 months operating without a permit?
Yes,
Yeah.
without our knowledge, but
Yep.
yes, that is the reality of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate your candor, because that wasn't in here, so.
It is what it
Now we
is,
know.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And it does seem that there were lots of steps taken to rectify the situation, which, speaks in your favor.
And may I-
Gentlemen, anything? Questions? Concerns, pithy asides? No?
May I just
Of
add,
course.
just as an individual here, I know like sometimes I'm very justice-based and I love justice, but seeing that we are seeking relief and there's that human element in that, like today's meeting will decide if I keep my house and other things. Like we're gonna sell this Airbnb. I don't think I'll ever own one again. But we're at a point where we're drowning right now. So if there is an element to appeal to that relief, that's what we're seeking here. Obviously, I wish that we didn't have to do this. Being justice-oriented and ethics-oriented, this was not our heart at all. And hopefully our actions and the timelines we've submitted will show that. So thank you guys for hearing us out.
Very good. Anything else before we close the public hearing? All right. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We are going to discuss this amongst ourselves. You can go back to your seat or go back to the back of the room, whatever you like, and you will hear what we come up with.
It's not going to be Monday. I do think that we should absolutely take into account the fact that when the council established the governing ordinances for short-term rentals, they made the waiting period for operating without a permit longer, twice as long as the waiting period for operating on an expired permit for a reason, and you explained that very well, Chair. I do think that I am inclined to offer some amount of relief. I would seek input from my fellow board members to sort of hone in on an amount of relief, but I would not say you can reapply Monday on this one.
I agree with all of that. I don't know, is it a 90-day kind of thing? I'm asking the 90-day kind of guy. I am moved by the success of the other properties, the fact that these aren't known players where it's like, oh, here are the troublemakers coming back. I know it is one of the elements we consider, which is undue hardship. In the same breath, I think the ordinance says it can't be something you brought on yourself. So in a way, it's the very statement in that ordinance negates itself because everybody pretty much brought this stuff on themselves, but through one, missed email or negligence or what have you. But there is a lot of hardship that probably will be associated with us delaying their ability to reapply too long. And I mean, that shouldn't determine everything. That's kind of, that's the risk you take. You roll the dice and you take your chances when you go into a business,
Yeah.
especially if you don't cross your T's and dot your I's.
I wish this were just an expired permit because I would say Monday, like that, and the only reason, and I want to make it very clear for the record, that the differentiating factor for me here is the fact that it was operating without a permit.
Right, right. those safety inspections were never done.
Correct.
And there's thankfully no tragedy associated with it.
Right,
but-
and then, also, the safety inspections weren't done, there's no contact information on file. If a neighbor has an issue, there's no one for them to get in touch with, because none of that is in the system, so.
True. So I think we all feel like some relief is reasonable. What kind of time frame are we talking about? January 12th, the appeal was filed. December 4th and 8th, the website ads were removed, so one might argue that was the last violation. So, what do we think? It's supposed to be a year, we do have discretion.
I was gonna say, what do we think about 1/3 of that time, which would be 120 days? No?
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I can't do math, that's 4 months, right?
That's 3 months.
No,
No.
90 days is
No,
3.
you're right.
It's 4,
90 days
can we
is
just
4
talk about months?
All right.
We
we're
don't
not
like to do
adding
math
here
in
today.
public,
Yeah,
right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's,
That's why I'm a lawyer. I
yeah.
don't do math.
I've seen council members try to do math on the floor and it never works out for them, so your suggestion is 4 months?
4 months.
Yes, my suggestion is 4 months, now that we've learned how to count. Yes.
Yeah. I am as
4
well.
months?
Okay, I'm fine with that as
What's our
well.
start date?
December what was that last date?
8th?
Yep. So that takes us to when, April the 8th?
April 8th.
Okay.
We all comfortable with that? I'll make a motion. Okay. I move that the zoning administrator did not err in this case, but with the totality of the circumstances, we are going to grant relief that these appellants can reapply for a permit on April 8th of 2026. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Can I see a show of hands? Wonderful. Gentlemen, thank you very much. April 8th is your day. Have a good one. Thanks for your time today. Do we have any housekeeping matters? Better not. It's wicked late. I think we did well. It was a big stack. Ms. Lischey, are we free to leave? Are we free to close the hearing? Okay. That concludes today's short-term rental appeals board meeting. Thank you. See you next month.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network.